One of the first things that surprised me when I started collecting ancient coins was the sheer number of coins there are available. I mean, these things are 1,000, 2,000 years old. Shouldn't they all have rotten away by now? And most did. The survival rate for ancient coins is an estimated 0.5%. The majority were recycled in order to make other coins, tools, jewelry, anything you can think of. And nature, of course, had plenty of time to corrode away a large portion of the survivors into nothingness. Yet, there's still a very substantial number of coins that have reached our days. So many, in fact, that they aren't priceless artifacts, they're affordable collectibles. Isn't it crazy? So in this video, I'm going to try to explain you why and how did so many survive. You see, in the ancient world, societies like the Greeks and Romans were far more monetized than many people imagine. During the height of the imperial period, yearly output throughout the empire's provincial and imperial mints was at least in the tens of millions of coins, if not in the hundreds. Ancient China, with its highly efficient cast production of coins, produced billions of coins each year for centuries. So, yeah, no shortage of coins that have reached us, even considering that 0.5% survival rate. Particularly in the case of Greece and Rome, as they were a highly urbanized people. In this kind of environment, money was a vital social technology. One of the main points of urbanization was so people could specialize in the jobs they were most productive at. However, with specialization, as you became a specialized artisan, an architect, a stonemason, yes, you became very good at that specific thing you did, and this increase in productivity and quality of work made everyone's lives more prosperous, but it also made you very dependent. If you spend your whole time as an artisan making swords, you still need the food from a farmer, the clothes from a tailor, a stonemason needs to build your house, and one of the tools that allowed the trade of value between these people was money, coins, a standardized tool for commerce. And because coins had to circulate constantly and survive a lot of handling, ancient societies eventually concentrated on the use of the classical monetary metals, such as gold, silver, and copper alloys. These metals already had an intrinsic appeal. Humans love gold and silver for their beauty and rarity, and they value copper and bronze for their practicality as tools and weapons, but they also share another crucial property for monetary metals. They're remarkably resistant. Compare them to iron, which can rust away into flakes in just a few centuries if conditions are bad enough. Gold is almost chemically inert. A gold coin can sit in the ground unprotected for 2,000 years and come out looking almost exactly as it did when it fell from someone's hand. It's a really magical metal. Silver, maybe it's a little bit more vulnerable. It reacts with certain chemicals and develops dark or even black patinas, but that patina can easily protect the metal underneath. And with some careful cleaning, the coin can look fantastic once again. Copper, bronze, and other alloys are more reactive. They will often come out of the ground covered in green or brown corrosion, but in the grand scheme of metals, copper is still very durable. Think of ancient bronze statues that have survived outdoors for millennia under a stable green patina, or our peak for modern statues like the Statue of Liberty under that green shell, there's copper. And even modern applications such as ship propellers and pipes used in ships, these are made out of brass and bronze because they resist very well to salt water. Salt water is incredibly corrosive. So, those same corrosion-resistant properties for these three metals are a big reason why so many ancient coins survive to our day. However, as you might expect, despite being so chemically inert, these metal discs couldn't survive 2 millennia of circulation, so any coin that has reached us today was at some point lost or forgotten. There were two main ways a coin could be lost and forgotten, entering its long slumber from the past until our present day. They could be lost as loose pieces, that means someone literally just dropped them as they were carrying on with their business, or they could have been deposited on hoards or treasures. That's where the vast majority of surviving ancient coins come from. Banks did not exist in the ancient world. There were institutions that worked as proto-banks. Temples in particular were commonly used as places for keeping your excess cash, but in a dangerous and violent world like the one from our forefathers, a huge temple right at the center of your city, jam-packed with precious metals, it was the first target for any invading armies. So lots of people preferred to keep their savings stashed away somewhere, under the floor of their houses, at a certain isolated place only they knew, under a tree, between rocks. That's what a hoard is, someone's piggy bank. Some were deposited very carefully in pottery jars and buried. Others were nothing but small linen bags with coins inside, which show up today as clumps of coins because obviously the fabric, as it was made out of organic material, it has long since rotten away, but you get the idea. Now, hoards are fascinating. There were many types of hoards, many reasons as to why people would assemble accumulations of coins. It was not just for savings. So you know what? Why don't we look at the main types of treasures or hoards that there are? Mainly, there are three types of hoards: circulating hoards, savings hoards, and votive hoards. Circulating hoards are composed of coins that were actively in use at the time they were concealed. Think about the money that was in people's bags and in circulation when the hoard was deposited. These were generally the pay chest of a state. It belonged to state authorities. Or these were treasures buried quickly in response to danger or uncertainty, the typical realities of the ancient world: war, enemy raids, the fear of theft. This type of treasure is quite straightforward. They're generally easy to date, as their composition tends to match the normal currency mix of a specific time. And what I find fascinating about these is that they offer some very unique glimpses as to the context in which they were buried. Let me give you some examples. One good example of a circulating hoard is the so-called Soldier's Monthly Paycheck hoard from Great Ellingham in Norfolk, England. It was a group of about 25 silver denarii, dated from the 2nd century AD, and it was interpreted as roughly 1 month of a salary for a Roman legionary. The area of Norfolk had very active Roman military presence at the time. The coins span a relatively narrow time period, and the composition of the hoard is very telling. It's entirely made out of denarii. 1 silver denarius was the rough pay for a legionary for a day of service. Considering at that time legionaries were paid 4 times in a year, this stash could be what a legionary managed to save after a trimester of work. All that was left from his paycheck, minus what he had to spend for his maintenance. It's interesting to see that there were no small denominations at this hoard. It was all in the shape of these high-value coins, which makes me think this was indeed what was left of someone's salary. The find was scattered in a plowed field, which fits the idea that this was originally in a lost fabric purse. Really cool. Basically, an ordinary soldier's money withdrawn from circulation in one go, then accidentally dropped and never recovered. At the other extreme in scale for circulating hoards, the Tomares treasure, located near Seville in Spain, is a massive late Roman circulating hoard. Discovered in 2016 during construction work, it consists of over 50,000 numi from the very late 3rd, mostly 4th century AD, all nicely packed in huge pottery jars. The coins are mostly from the reigns of emperors like Diocletian, Maximian, Constantius Chlorus, and Galerius, and the huge number of low-denomination coins, mostly from a very restricted time frame, indicate this might have been the result of maybe tax collection or a kind of cash deposited held by the local authorities, meant to pay soldiers' wages, so maybe a pay chest, or maybe a cash reserve to pay for everyday state expenses. It's one of the largest hoards of coins for this time period, and it's a colossal example of coinage lifted straight out of circulation at a particular moment and frozen in time beneath the ground. I really hope Spanish archaeologists give us some more information about the nature of the hoard. They have been taking quite a long time to release any information on the find, and it has been almost a decade since its discovery after all. I wonder if private collectors could do a better job in less time identifying such a treasure. We then go to votive hoards, treasures that were clearly meant to have some ritual or funerary context, and that's the big clue that sets them apart from other common hoards. Votive hoards tend to be found at sites of shrines and temples, someplace with a ritualistic context, like a sacred spring or a cemetery, places that were understood as sacred. Now, the key thing about these hoards is that the objects, including coins that are found, they are deposited without any intention of recovery. They were meant to be offerings, often to ask for help of the gods or to give thanks. They may be carefully arranged, thrown into the water, or buried in special pits. And sometimes the objects are also bent, broken, or kind of like killed in some way to mark them as permanently removed from everyday use, from the land of the living. These are very easily identifiable because of their religious setting and this deliberate, irreversible gift character of the deposit. One very common example of votive hoards are grave goods. These were part of the treatment of the dead, some sort of offering given to the dead to accompany them into the afterlife. The old myth of Charon's obol, the small coin put on the eyes or the mouth of the deceased, is a common type of votive offering used to pay for the dead's journey into the afterlife. There has been an incredible recent votive hoard found in San Cassiano dei Bagni in Italy. This was an old Etruscan sanctuary, a healing shrine that was established around the 3rd century BC and continued in use well into the Roman imperial period, as late as the 4th, 5th centuries AD. Apart from the dozens of bronze statues, gold leaf offerings, jewelry, lamps, what matters to us was the discovery of thousands of coins. Early reports indicated about 5,000 of them, but the latest ones mentioned there could be up to 10,000 pieces, ranging from late Republican to imperial issues. The shrine must have been very popular with all strata of Roman society, as all kinds of coins were found, from gold ori, silver coins, and a huge mass of bronze and brass pieces. These were most likely deposited there as offerings to the gods, in search for the cure of one's diseases, or maybe to give thanks for a successful recovery. Now, what makes San Cassiano truly astonishing for a numismatist is the state of preservation of the bronze coins. The sacred basin is fed by hot water at around 41 degrees Celsius, flowing at roughly 25 liters per second. That's a nice volume of water. So, as you deposited your offering into the spring, your coin was rapidly sealed under a layer of clay and mud in an almost anaerobic, mineral-rich environment. That lack of oxygen and the protective blanket of mud meant the coins, even those of more highly reactive base metal alloys, they were quickly sealed in a type of time capsule. The pictures of the finds are incredible. Instead of the thick green or brown patinas we're used to when we handle our bronze coins, many San Cassiano pieces come out looking almost as they did when they were deposited, giving us this rare, near direct glimpse of the original color and surface of Roman bronze coins, something we almost never see because the metal has been protected in this kind of very specific oxygen-poor microenvironment. And finally, we look at savings hoards. This is the more traditional type of treasure we all initially think of when talking about treasures. They are the result of years or even decades of quiet accumulation by an individual or a family. A savings hoard is what happens when someone steadily saves coins from day-to-day circulation and sets them aside for a safety net. Cutting it very short, it's an ancient piggy bank. They have a few characteristics that set it apart. Because they're built over a long time rather than grabbed in a panic, savings hoards often show a wide spread of dates on the coins. After all, the main point there was the accumulation of precious metals. And there's also a noticeable preference for higher denomination pieces. Good silver coins, gold, and in general the higher denominations of whichever monetary system they were contextualized in. They're usually buried or hidden in places that feel safe and private. You won't find savings hoards in the ruins of an important temple. Those come from under the floors of a house, inside walls, and if they're found in an isolated context, generally they're close to some sort of marker. A stone, under a dry tree, an area where it could be found by the hoarder or their family, because of course the intention was that the owner or their family would come back for them. Another hallmark of savings hoards is that they are often more than just coins. In antiquity, anything made out of precious metals was a store of value. So, along with gold and silver coinage, you can find ingots, fragments of silver and gold objects, jewelry, rings, chains. To an ancient saver, a heavy gold necklace or a hacked piece of silver was basically as much money as a coin, even if you lived in a monetized society, because it could be weighted and traded with. That's why, for example, I absolutely love Viking hoards. They often have coins, but more than that, they have lots of other stuff like bracelets, smashed fragments of crosses, and Christian implements from their raids. Anything precious, generally made out of silver, they loved silver, was used and was accumulated, since Viking society worked in a bullion-based economy. Everything made out of metal had some sort of value. We can see this nature of savings hoard as a selective and curated assembly of objects in the Hoxne hoard. You can see a good part of it at the British Museum. It's one of their permanent exhibitions, and it's quite a thing to look at. The treasure was concentrated where a wooden chest had once stood. It was a densely packed, very deliberate arrangement of valuables. About 14,000 coins, some 600 gold solidi and 14,000 silver siliqua, plus roughly 200 objects made out of precious metals, spoons, ladles, mostly jewelry. The coins run from the reign of Constantine II, so around 337 AD, up to coins of Honorius, dated around 407 AD. So a fairly long date range, and the latest one, which dates the hoard, it's dated right at the time when the Roman Empire was withdrawing from Britain. All those features are exactly what you would expect from a savings hoard. The wide date range of the coins shows wealth that was built up over decades, with strong emphasis on high-value gold and silver coins. The absence of any small change is very telling. The objects were also hoarded by type in the chest. Some stacked or nested, others were in smaller wooden boxes or wrapped in cloth, which is very different from the jumble you would get if someone just scooped things up in a panic. On top of that, it's not just coins. The household that assembled this hoard added to it their most valuable pieces of jewelry and utensils. The British Museum explicitly describes Hoxne as a treasure buried for safety at a time when Rome was abandoning Britain, and of course any Romano-Britons who stayed behind were certainly very scared, which explains why hoards dated to the early 5th century are so common in Britain. And so, here we have it. Writing this script made me wonder, where have my coins been to before they came to my collection? Were they once an emergency hoard stashed away by a scared Roman as the barbarians were crossing the gates? Were they part of an offering left in a temple, or maybe a savings hoard curated diligently over the course of decades? It's certainly a cool thought experiment. What about you? Do you have a coin that came from an identified hoard? Let us know in the comment section down below. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Leave a like and consider subscribing if you did. Happy collecting, and I'll see you soon. Let me give a special thank you to all of my amazing channel members and Patreons for their generous support. This channel would not be the same without your help. And if you would like to be part of this list, have early access to my videos when they are uploaded to YouTube, and a series of other perks, make sure to check out my Patreon page and my members tab on YouTube. Thank you very much.